All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making some time today. I'm Dan Powers. I'm the Executive Director of CoLabs, a consortium of over 30 federally funded research laboratories and joint research institutes here in Colorado. And one of the ways that we look to champion the ROI on taxpayer-funded research is to make connections between the labs and our elected officials, highlighting some of the research that is crucial for our national goals and national challenges up to that level of the federal elected officials. And today we have Representative Ed Perlmutter from CD7 in Colorado here to listen to a few updates from 4 guests. We have Dr. Martin Keller, the director of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and also Daniel Laird, who is Dr. Daniel Laird, is the director of the National Wind Technology Center. We have Marla Dowell, Dr. Marla Dowell, who's the director of the Communications Technology Laboratory and the Boulder Laboratory Campus of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and also Will Vaughan. Will is a CoLabs board member, and he's the director of technology transfer at the Colorado School of Mines in Golden. So we are going to hear from each of them and then have some question and comments back and forth with the congressman and his staff as they deem necessary. So Dr. Keller, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So first of all, thanks for taking the time and talking to us, Congressman. So I'm sorry that we had to reschedule our visit to NREL. I hope we can do this soon, because I tell you, there's a lot of stuff is going on at NREL right now, and that's where I'm super excited to share a few things with you. But before we go into some of the research, I thought you might be interested in also to hear a little bit an update on the COVID-19 situation at NREL, because I know over the last year we were in regular context between us directly and also with your staff to keep you updated. It was a rough year for all of us, but I think we at NREL, I feel we managed very well. And when you look also at our statistics, we're still having mostly everybody working from home. So we following the new DOE guidelines, by having at least less than 25% of our staff on site. We have done this the whole time, so we never really changed this. We were able to, when all this happened over a year ago, transition from working in the lab to working from home within a day, where everybody was taking the laptops and went home basically. And overall, I think it worked very well. We still found new ways to have a software and apps where people sign up to go to the laboratories to do the research, and then they go home and do the analysis. So look, overall, in all this, we're tracking everybody who has symptoms, and we're tracking them in our app. In this whole year, we have a total amount of 102 positive tests at NREL from being from home or at work, mostly people at home. So this is, in our feeling, with almost having 3,000 people at NREL, we feel that this is a very low rate. And I think, and I want to thank everybody at NREL, all NRELians, the NREL people just followed guidelines and keep the masks on, and not only at work, but also on their private endeavors. And that's why I think we overall had very low rates. So also what I want to share with all of you, which is we are super excited. We worked with the state and also specifically with Jeffco, where we now had a couple of immunization clinics. So now we administered at NREL, and this is a drive-through event at our parking garage. We administered over 3,357 doses of vaccine. And what we are super, super excited that together with Jeffco, Jeffco had the outreach program for underserved communities. So we had 1,686 doses for the Jeffco underserved communities, where Jeffco together with us helped to bring the people to the site, and it's a drive-through site, and it was, I think, working extremely well. And we also have a total of 1,504 NRELians and the households which we could vaccinate, and they of course all followed these state guidelines, which were very strict, that we follow, it was first 50 plus, and now of course it's changing. And then we also had 167 for DOE employees. So this is the Golden Field office. So we worked very hard, and again, this is where NREL strength came in. It's all run by volunteers from our side. from people who flagging the cars into the site to translators. So we made sure that we pretty much had all known languages in our area present, from Japanese to Spanish, because we felt there's a lot of this, especially when you look into some of these members of our communities, and we had some cases where people just really were so happy that we had translators present to explain to them what the process is. So we feel this also to give it back into the community, and that's why we felt that NREL's parking garage is a perfect location where people can come in, drive through there, rest in their cars, where they're all lined up for the time, and then they move on. So we're super excited. We have 2 big events coming on Thursday, Friday. Now this is now the second shot, the second dose we're giving to the people in the community and to NRELs. So on the research side, there's so much happening. I mean, I want to start out. Some of you might have seen the new analysis we released with LA, the so-called LA 100 study. This was a big event a week and a half ago, I think, with Mayor Garcetti and in LA and Secretary of Energy, where we released the studies which was going on for 3 years to see what will it take LA to go to 100% renewable energy. So this was a study which was kind of leading the whole area there, where we modeled every building to see if there's solar panels on there. It also had a big element of environmental justice built in this study. We worked with these communities to see what we can do to bring them along on the energy transition. And I know that the DOE is now very excited to see how we can scale this across the whole United States. At the same time, perhaps also for you in the state, there is early discussions, with the state to see how can Colorado further develop a clean energy, what we call clean energy park. Some of you might have heard this. I know that we have discussions also with Colorado School of Mines and CSU and Boulder to see how the universities can be part of this. But there's a lot of discussions going on to see Congressman, you might have heard about this, to see is there the so-called land swap from giving some land to open space, and so this is all moving very, very well, and we are very excited about this brand new opportunity. On the research side, I mean, I let Dr. Laird talk about what's going on the wind side, but there's a lot of really deep excitement going on what we call ARES, to see can we not only do the modeling and simulation, but then also how do you bring some of these new things to practice. And this is where we're working and combining this modeling with so-called emulations, where we're using the wind side to bring this equipment directly on site to go up to 20 megawatts. So Daniel will talk about more, I'm sure, about this new development. So the other big thing which we are also excited is this whole energy justice, environmental justice, which is gaining a lot of momentum. And historically, we at NREL have done a lot of work, as I'm sure you know, about what we've done with communities from Native Americans to cities, and especially right now, and Ed, we talked about this when we brought the Cold Climate Housing Research Center in Alaska to the NREL family. This was hindsight now an amazing move, because this center up there in Alaska is completely into the community and help communities, whole villages, to see how we can relocate them based on climate change. Some of these villages now, the sea ice is gone, so now they're flooded. So we're combining not only from the housing side to see how we can build a more clean and healthy structures with them, but also bring the energy side into this. This gains a lot of traction right now, also within DOE and within Alaska. And there's a lot of things what we can learn now, what we bring into these communities, and how can we learn and bring this across the whole United States. So energy justice, big topic right now at NREL, and we are super excited about the new kind of development within the Biden administration to really look into this, because as you all know, for example, just on solar rooftops in Black communities, it's 67% or even higher, where it's a lower kind of acceptance rate as in white communities. And there's a lot of work we need to do with these communities across the whole US to make them part of the energy transition. And there is a lot of excitement there. And we are super excited also to work with DOE to further bring this knowledge to the community, and not only look on the deployment, but also on the energy transition for some of these communities as well. Look, I want to stop here right now. There's so much more we could talk, but of course, I don't want to dominate this discussion. But we are very excited that frankly now we can talk about again what NREL actually does. We don't have to be careful about every word in climate change or environmental changes or decarbonization, and we are super thrilled how we can move and be part of this to create a better planet. And Congressman, thank you for your leadership and for all of your support. I know there's probably a lot of requests from DOE coming towards Congress to help to bolster some of this activity. So I know you all will be very busy to look through all these proposals, and I know that you always have NREL in mind as well. So thank you so much, and I want to stop here.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Keller. Over to you, Dr. Laird.
Yeah, so just echo some of the thank you to the congressman and all involved in organizing this. This is great. So thank you. Also, I think it's obvious, but just for extreme clarity here, the National Wind Technology Center is part of NREL. So the site, which again is visible from quite a ways, is just south of Boulder, and was exclusively focused on wind energy for decades, but for quite a while, more than 10 years, has included a lot of grid integration work as well as water power research, many things beyond the wind energy scope. And so a couple of years ago, the site was renamed by the Department of Energy to the NREL Flatirons campus, and the National Wind Technology Center is a research center now located at the Flatirons campus. So Dr. Keller mentioned ARES, which is our Advanced Research on Integrated Energy Systems initiative. We're very excited about this. This is a big effort at NREL, and it really brings together a lot of the energy integration work that's been going on at NREL for many years, but really kind of turbocharges that for what's needed going forward. And if I can make an attempt at simplifying that, we've had great success developing renewable energy technologies such as wind energy, solar, et cetera. But they've been a small enough part of the overall energy system that they could grow in kind of a stove-piped fashion. So as long as we made solar better, it would keep expanding, and the same with wind energy. But we're at the point now where they're getting to be a big enough player on the grid and in our energy systems that it's really the grid integration. How do you balance these different types of generation, renewable and fossil nuclear storage, other things, and actually come up with a robust system that works. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I think we all saw some of the issues that happened with the blackouts in Texas last month, maybe I guess in February, and how there was kind of a domino effect there where grid outages then led to other infrastructure concerns with lack of water, which then led to more loss of power. And so ARES is really how we can do the research and study those types of issues at a large scale. So we do a lot of the slightly smaller power research at the South Table Mountain campus at NREL, up to about 2 megawatts. The Flatirons campus, again, what was called the wind site historically, we have up to 20 megawatts for an interconnection, and we have multi-megawatt generation, storage, et cetera. So we can really test the theories that we develop at a significant scale, and then use real-time simulation to actually come up with emulation of much larger systems. So again, I don't want to talk for too long, but this very different energy picture that this administration is leading us towards is coming quickly. So as everyone on this call probably knows, this administration is shooting for carbon-free power generation by 2035 and basically net zero carbon energy system meaning industrial and everything else, by 2050. And so how we make sure that those energy systems are reliable, resilient, et cetera, that we don't have the types of problems that they had in Texas 6 weeks ago, is really what ARES is trying to accomplish. And if you're wondering if renewables are still little parts of our energy system, I just saw this morning that SPP, Southwest Power Pool, which provides power to a nice chunk of the country, kind of in the center, surpassed 80% renewable generation just over a week ago. I think it was March 29th. So renewables are not going to be bit players. They're really going to be the heart of our grid and energy system going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Laird. All right, now, Marla, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Congressman Perlmutter, and the rest of the folks who made this call today possible. I'm really excited to share with you how NIST and the Department of Commerce is supporting space commerce. That's my topic for today. In 1901, NIST was established by Congress to help overcome challenges facing U.S. industry, one that our NIST staff continue to embrace wholeheartedly today. The NIST Boulder campus was dedicated in 1954, and several of the original laboratories are still home to world-class research programs today. I'd love to give you a tour at some point. From the smart electric power grid to the communications infrastructure, advanced nanomaterials, and computer chips, innumerable products and services rely on the way that technology, measurements, and standards provided by NIST and its private-public partnerships, including partnerships with NREL on the smart electric power grid. In addition to all of these different things, NIST staff during this pandemic embraced wholeheartedly how can this broad area of expertise respond to this to the COVID pandemic. So I encourage you to visit www.nist.gov/coronavirus to see how quickly NIST staff were able to pivot their research, work both on campus safely and at home to address things like biological issues, biological measurements, AI and data analytics to support virus development, wireless innovations, Wi-Fi routers to be used as respiratory monitors, and much, much more. It's really an amazing portfolio of projects on how we've responded. But again, today I'm going to talk to you about some of our activities related to space commerce, both in Colorado and across the US. The DOC held a space commerce workshop in late 2019 in Boulder, and together with industry partners, identified several recommendations on technology barriers, solutions, and standards needed to foster conditions for economic growth and technical advancement of the space industry. The Department of Commerce and NIST will continue to play a role coordinating and supporting industry-led development of standards to help propel the future growth of the $400 billion global space industry. And as we work together to address our climate crisis, NIST supports NASA and NOAA satellite instruments through measurements, standards, and innovative satellite instrumentation that are key to space weather monitoring. And moreover, are developing new materials to help enable new sensors on these satellites. The work of NASTN, a multi-agency chartered partnership hosted by NIST, is helping to improve options for the space industry by taking the initial steps to support neutral, validated data needed for spectrum and coexistence measurements with space assets, including 5G spectrum sharing testbed that we built safely during the COVID pandemic and commissioned last fall. CTL's antenna communication and metrology laboratory utilizes reconfigurable industrial robots along with radio frequency and millimeter wave resources to support measurements needed to characterize satellite antennas for communications and remote sensing. CTL is also trying new ways of providing measurements that range from the exploratory to detailed characterization with the lowest available uncertainty. And NIST's NextG Channel Model Alliance is developing propagation models and working with industry, academia, and other federal agencies like our colleagues here on the Boulder campus at NTIA to expand its coverage to include terahertz frequencies and non-terrestrial paths. The Alliance further benefits propagation models through facilitating data gathering in areas such as atmospheric data in remote areas, developing countries, and data on new geometries for propagation from satellites that communicate on all planes. And this is done working closely with industry partners such as Facebook, Intel, Google, Amazon, AT&T, Qualcomm, and many, many more. There are over 180 participants in the Channel Mile Alliance. And finally, Colorado is home to the nation's second largest aerospace economy. How exciting. The NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership supports this economy through its nationwide network of MEP centers. And in Colorado, Manufacturers Edge serves as the NIST MEP center with regional offices across the state, providing consulting, workforce development, and sustainable practices, assisting small Colorado manufacturers to overcome the barriers for entry in the growing Colorado space economy. So, I've only highlighted a couple of these things here. I could go on for a lot longer, but we support, as you can see, NIST supports the space commerce in many ways, from technology innovations, student training opportunities, which I didn't get a chance to talk to you about today, private-public partnerships, and crucial support for U.S. small manufacturers. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about any of these topics today or at a later date. Thanks.
Gotta make sure I'm not muted. Thank you, Marla. And I love seeing that frequency spectrum map over your shoulder there. I have one of those as a mouse pad. Yes, science geeks, it's a thing. All right, so Will, on to you. What's happening at School of Mines?
Oh, too much to mention, but you asked me to speak a little bit about what's going on with the federal funding and that sort of thing here at Mines. Probably the biggest impact the federal government has had on Mines in the past month or so is that our VP of Research was recruited by the Biden administration to head DARPA. So our loss is their gain. And unfortunately, I've heard back that she really loves her job. So she's not going to be coming back anytime soon. And that's unfortunate because, under Stephanie in the last 3 years from FY18, we grew the research enterprise from about 56 million to about 74 million. And as you probably know, Mines is known as a university that works very closely with industry, but that percentage of industry funding has been going down because the percentage of federal funding has been going up. In FY18, that was 33 million. In FY20, that was 45 million. So we have been competing more in those areas and winning more. If you take a look and you break it out by department, certainly the largest funding that comes to Mines is from energy, and that's probably because of our strong partnerships with NREL. We do a lot of joint appointments with them, and just as one example, the National Alliance of Water Innovation was just awarded. That's through Lawrence Berkeley Lab, but NREL is a major player of it, and Mines certainly is partnering with NREL for that. Dan also asked me to talk a little bit about SBIR. Unlike our colleagues at CU and CSU, our deal flow for startups and those sorts of things is not huge, but in the last year, we've had 2 startup companies come out of Mines that have taken advantage of the SBIR funding mechanism, which is a godsend for companies at that stage. That's what I primarily deal with, are trying to get these technologies out the door. And having that non-dilutive money come in to help them answer some questions so that they can go out and de-risk the technology really helps them get those innovations out into the market. The other way we work with SBIR and STTR is companies will come to us with technologies and want us to help them. And we do that quite often, probably half a dozen times a year. A company will come to us and want to partner with us on an SBIR or STTR. And these are smallish companies that are just trying to get into the market. And we're we're very grateful for that funding and that they see mines as a resource in that area. You had mentioned the Space Resources Center here at Mines, which continues to grow. You know, NASA's, we probably, you know, if you again take a look by departments, after NASA has steadily grown that funding for us. And you know, in my job as a tech transfer director, I get the inventions. So I have seen inventions about how to mine on the moon, and how do we, you know, once we establish bases either there or Mars, how do we use the resources that are there? How do we get those out of the ground, be it water or minerals, to use for everything else? And I think, I mean, I could go on for hours about, you know, all the projects that we're doing that are federally funded, but I think it's probably best if we stop and take questions at this point. So thanks.
And Will, could I ask actually one other topic? You had mentioned
Sure.
there's a joint building project with the U.S. Geological Survey.
Oh, yes, yes. That was put on hold because of the budget and COVID and the like. My understanding is that that's being discussed again right now. That's going to be a joint building with USGS, where they are going to be physically on campus. It'll allow for greater partnerships and greater exchange. You know, we work with the Federal Center down at Kipling quite a bit, particularly with the nuclear reactor that's down there. So having them closer at the USGS will certainly help foster that. I mean, there is the Earthquake Center is on campus, but that's kind of not accessible with mines. This will be partnerships, you know, just down the hall. You'll be mingling colleagues and the like. So sorry, Dan, I had that written down here and I just forgot. So
This is just too much to describe. All right, well then, to Tia and Congressman Perlmutter, I'll turn it back to you based on what you've heard here. What questions do you have that you'd like to dig into a little bit further?
I'll let Tia go first. I have a lot of questions, but I want my crack staff and Garrett too. If you guys have some questions, I certainly do. And but I'll shut up for a second, and then we can start having some fun.
All right.
My question is specifically for Dr. Keller. I was reading that NREL successfully was able to use islanding to bring up the renewable energy grid on the Flatirons campus recently after a transformer blew up. So I'm just curious how work like this can help us protect our grid during extreme weather events, you know, like we mentioned in Texas during the blackouts.
So look, perfect questions, and I let Daniel also to give you more details. But look, this was one of these elements where, you know, where NREL was able to make, you know, a lemonade out of lemons. So what happened is we just had this new transformer station with Excel to bring it up to 20 megawatts. And again, there was a transformer malfunction. It just blew up, and you might have seen these pictures. It was this spectacular fireball what the cameras collected when this transformer blew up. And honestly, this is an event which happens actually pretty often in some of this when the transformer getting installed and they're running for a couple of weeks and then they malfunction. So, but frankly, suddenly what happened was that the whole campus was out of electricity. And so everybody stepped up and had a lot of discussion also with Excel, where they were a great partner in all this. And we learned actually how to restart the grid for this, which is very important when you talk about so-called black start. I mean, this is a very important element right now when we go to deep penetration of renewables and move away from this moving, you know, masses, you know, which is spinning. So how to restart the grid. So we gained a lot of experience around doing this. And frankly, then what we've done is we were running the whole site as a real microgrid, and all the facilities were powered during the solar and wind. And we learned actually a lot by helping all this. And frankly, from blowing this up, suddenly we could demonstrate the power of this site and really develop this and ask a lot of questions. Now this leading actually now to a couple of papers which now will come out soon. So, but Daniel, I give you over to you to see if you have more details even than I do on this one.
Sure, and Dr. Keller certainly hit the major points. The the failure of the substation happened, I think, September 8th, and it was one of those classic Colorado situations of sunny and warm one day and snow the next morning. So the temperature drop was pretty extreme over 24 hours, and that may have been related. And again, he covered much of this, but some real excitement for us was that I gave you a little bit of the history of the site, which was all wind energy focused, and we've kind of progressed up to this grid integration research mission. And so the site was not designed to operate as a microgrid, and as such, microgrids generally have a master controller that keeps all the pieces doing what you want them to do, and we didn't have that. And so I want to give credit to some of the NREL researchers that came up with a way to black start the site and actually control it so that the storage and generation was all in balance without a controller. And so we think there's actually big opportunity for taking what we learned from this, making lemonade out of lemons situation that Dr. Keller mentioned, and how what we did can maybe help with cybersecurity and some of the other issues that are going to be important as these types of high renewable penetration systems are the energy system going forward. So not just microgrids, but regional and national scale.
Thank you. So I should have introduced Tia. She is a Coloradan. She works out of our DC office, handles my science committee portfolio, as well as a whole bunch of other things, but primarily she's been assigned to the science committee for me. And Garrett Luckin is here in the district and works on a whole range of constituent issues, but particularly environmental issues, which is also Tia's area as well. So Garrett, I don't know if you had any questions, but why don't you fire away and then I'll ask my questions of all of these preeminent people.
Well, thank you, Ed. Yeah, just one question. It's not really directed at anyone specific, so anyone feel free to jump in. But recently read a report that indicated the United States share of global battery production is expected to drop from 8% to 6% by 2025. And as I'm sure you're all aware, batteries are going to play an integral part in storing renewable energy in our grid, as well as helping our transition to electric vehicles. So in your opinion, what are some of the major barriers to the United States becoming a global leader in battery production?
So look, again, I can't go first, but please chime in from our side. But I tell you, what I'm seeing, and when you probably saw this, also there's a big effort right now when the Biden administration basically put this new legislation up there to call it to block import of batteries. So a lot of the car manufacturers like GM and then also now Volkswagen producing in the US, they're very worried because a lot of their batteries are actually coming from Korea. So you bring up this whole issue of not only in batteries but on the whole concept of on the energy transition about the supply chain. And this is, I think, is something which is extremely important, that we develop not only the research and the innovation, but also make sure that we having policies to support the supply chain development within the United States. Because look, we don't want to be depending on China. We don't want to flip over that we buy all the oil from the Middle East, and now suddenly down the road we have to buy all the batteries from China, and then with this we have a problem there. So this is why I think it's extremely important to link this. Look, what I'm seeing from the current administration, there's a lot of very exciting developments, in my opinion, to develop the supply chain in the United States. Look, some people say it's just that we are too expensive on our salaries and wages. I would disagree with this, because when you look, frankly, as you can hear from my background being originally from Germany, Germany is the best example on very high wages, a lot of union systems, but still one of the leading places in high-tech manufacturing. So I don't buy this argument. I think it's a lot of times And what I'm hearing when we had some workshops at NREL on battery manufacturing, we have to make sure that we have long-term policies in place to secure some of these developments in the US. And frankly, by companies like GM announcing, Volkswagen, Ford, all moving towards electric vehicles, I think the industry will send this as a very clear signal to build a supply chain also of batteries in the United States. So to be honest, I'm pretty optimistic that we will be the leader in this area. If we continue, and this is perhaps a little bit an interesting aspect, what I'm hearing a lot from the Secretary Granholm, when she talked to us and said, okay, what can we do to make sure that no future administration can revert the march towards clean energy and decarbonization? And of course, it's all ringing in our ear, especially at the NREL. It's where it's okay, what can we do? And I tell you, in my view, it's what I told the Secretary. If we bring the community with us towards the change, customers want to see this change. If we do this on a community level, then nobody in Washington, it's very hard to revert this trend. And that's why I think the environmental justice, energy justice development is so important, because we have to move the whole US towards this direction, not just a few people who can afford a Tesla and solar panels on rooftops. We have to do this across. And this also relates back to jobs and the supply chain, what you brought up on batteries.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I think that there are a lot of the policies in the Make It All in America Biden plan that will support both the supply chain issues for battery production as well as microelectronics. But critical in my mind, critical for this is looking at the US educational system. So according to the Department of Labor, 40% of bachelor's degrees in electrical engineering are go to people who are not US citizens and not permanent residents. Okay, if they're coming to the US and studying here, maybe we should be looking at policies to encourage them to stay and support our industries, right? So let's keep that, keep people like Dr. Keller here in the United States to support that, to support that supply chain. And simultaneously increase and encourage and set up practices for our people who are, kids who are growing up in the US educational system to be able to pursue those degrees in electrical engineering. Yeah. I mean, I would like to defer to Bill Vaughan from Colorado School of Mines, but I think right now in Colorado, an issue is that you don't have to take AP Calculus to graduate with the bachelor's degrees, but most engineering programs require AP Calculus to pursue a major in engineering. So there's a gap there that I think in Colorado we need to address.
Can I just add there's one thing, because what you said, especially also my personal, scientists and engineers go where the action is. Look, when I did of course, Germany paid for all my education, for everything, and then I left and never came back because the action was in the US on biotech, what I started on all. So the people follow where the action is. And I think if we go back to be seen as the world leader in innovation, in the action, in being on the forefront of all this, people will come and want to be part of this. And that's, I think, is the strength. And if we keep this, we will continue to be the world leader in innovation, because we will recruit the best people from all over the world to come to the US. And I think that's where we, of course, have to build the internal education system. I fully agree with you. But we also have to be recruiting people from all over the world and be the place where the action is.
All right, well, I'm going to jump in there. Or go ahead, Will, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, when Dr. Keller starts talking about the supply chain, we're part of the Critical Minerals Institute with the National Lab at Ames, Iowa, looking into not only how do we secure that supply of critical minerals for clean energy and batteries, but what are the alternatives? What can we do that doesn't rely on those critical minerals to produce batteries, to store clean energy?
So what I wanted to say, first of all, we are #1 per capita in national labs. We are #1 per capita in the aerospace industry. And you don't those two things fit together, actually, along with our universities and institutions of higher learning and our K through 12 education system. So you've got industry, you've got academia, and you've got the laboratories. And Colorado has enjoyed this preeminence. I'm going to use that word twice today, because we have this symbiotic relationship among these three areas, and we've got to keep it that way. So, Will, I was going to ask you a question. I noticed we've got Heidi Hostetter is supposed to be viewing this thing, and obviously she and her company work with the School of Mines and your 3D manufacturing labs and all of that stuff. And so, this ability of the laboratories to do both basic science as well as applied science, and then couple in the students is, for me, is really, the Denver Post on its masthead used to have, "'Tis a privilege to live in Colorado." So we live in a great place, and then we have great people who all work together. So why don't you tell me a little bit how your working with manufacturing has been going lately?
Well, I think you're talking about the Dept Center,
Yes.
which was actually funded through the state of Colorado. We shouldn't forget that. That was a grant, I think, around $2.5–3 million. And it's specifically set up so that companies can manufacture their parts up to spec with recorded formulas, if you will. To do that. And they have been wildly successful in helping the companies of Colorado, be able to 3D manufacture specific parts for their myriad of areas that they work in. So, there's jet parts, there are everything down to consumables. So, and they are trying to expand. They're doing a lot of work in the metals and alloys. We've also started to work in plastics and polymers in that area as well. So it really does work as a test bed for companies to come in and be able to use those facilities, because they probably can't afford these sorts of machines themselves. And I will say, why we are proudly working with Colorado companies from all over the country are recognizing that this is a center of excellence here in Colorado. And, we have them all over the country. I haven't been to a board meeting in a while, but so I can't give you the stats right now.
And Marla, I'd like to ask you a question. Last time I was at your lab, you had one of your scientists was working on a quantum computer, and I don't know what this, and I know that NIST is very involved in advanced computing. So can you tell me a little bit about what's happening there?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot going on in quantum computing and quantum communications. So I'm not sure how much the folks on this call are aware. There are multiple different technologies that are being proposed for making a quantum computer, from things like superconducting chips to ion traps to single photon sources. So a wide range of technologies, and NIST has experts working in each of these areas. But one of the things that really makes this NIST effort special in my mind is we're not betting on any one technology, and we're setting up the rulers, so to speak, to help companies and industry and the tech transfer decide which of these technologies is going to be the best for your different application. You can think of the different technologies as sort of like our portfolio for energy sources. We have wind, we have solar, we have hydro, we have nuclear, and the traditional coal and gas fired. No one technology is the best. You want all of these different options available to you. But in addition to that, we're also looking at things. It's not enough to have a quantum computer. A quantum computer sitting in one lab doesn't benefit everybody. We need to be able to connect these computers together. So we have a joint project with the University of Colorado Boulder to establish a quantum network here in town. DOE has a much larger effort, but I think one of the things that's, again, the secret sauce about NIST is, again, those standards, those measurements, which technology is the best. And we want to partner with other agencies like DOE so that we can help them decide which of their innovations is the right for the application. Because as we say at NIST, what if you can't measure it, you can't innovate.
Thank you. Dan, I just have one more question, then I'll turn it to you. I think I was supposed to visit NREL yesterday with Jason Crow, and he was called away to go down to the border because of, obviously issues with immigration and stuff. So we postponed that, Dr. Keller. We'll be back. In fact, I hope to bring a number of people from the science committee to visit our laboratories. We had scheduled with you, with NIST, with NOAA, and with we were going to do something at the School of Mines a year ago. This time we were going to have a big science Codel, just because I am so proud of all of you and want to show you off. No, it's not like, to have all of this in my backyard, you get a little bit used to having all of this stuff, but the rest of the members of the committee don't have that advantage that I have. So I wanted to talk to you, Martin, and Daniel, just in terms of the support that you feel you've gotten and that, you need to continue to do your work, whether it's developing the grid, because Daniel, I think you're going to be a very busy man for the next several years, because part of the infrastructure package that is on the table today and that we passed in the House last summer is a major upgrade and rebuilding of the grid, and really in pretty short order, not over next 20 years, but probably over the next 5 to 10. So how do you see this unfolding, and what role do you want NREL to play?
Yeah, so look, thank you for this. And I think there is, to make it simple, we have 3 big priorities which we need to really try to see how we're maneuvering through this, and a lot of them is linked to this so-called F&I line. That this is every year this discussion, which is direct support from DOE, from ERE, to support some construction and kind of facility development agendas. So the number one, the highest priority is really EMAPs, and you might have heard this. It's also thank you for the support in this year's bill, also from the Senate and from the House, to have a kind of a first kind of step in there to think about this facility. We're going with DOE through the CD approach. So this is now in CD1. So CD0 was signed off. So now this is a CD1, which is this competitive analysis. So EMAPs will be a facility, and this is going a little bit down, William, what you talk about at mines, and this is also will be in a lot of collaboration with the universities there, where we need to do a better job in scaling technology. I always use the example on solar. It took over 30 years to go from the idea, when NREL was started, a couple of hippies, in the backcountry of Colorado, and they say, well, we make solar the cheapest way to produce electricity. Yeah, and we were successful, but it took 30 years. So we don't have 30 years to do this. We have to do faster for getting the ideas, collaborating with all the great early stage research from our universities and from other national laboratories, and then bring this and work with industry towards scalability. This is what this facility will do, and we feel this will be extremely important. It also honestly closes to update some of our research facilities and bring these capabilities to NREL, which we lack across the whole US, to do this, to make devices large enough that industry then can take it and bring a pilot plant and deploy it. And we need to do this faster. So this is what this facilities will do. It's very supported also now with this new current administration, but it works through this CD approaches, will take a long time. Honestly, my hope would be, if there would be a stimulus package, could we really expedite this and build this because we need this laboratory space, and we need desperately wet lab space at NREL. The second highest priority.
All right, well, you may get your wish, so you better be ready for it.
We are ready. We are ready.
All
Look,
right.
we have plans. We are ready. So the second thing goes straight to, to what Daniel talked about. This is Aries, because again, when we go and using this and deploying the renewables, we need to show that yes, it works before utilities will actually go and deploy this in the market. So this so-called this Aries to go to 20 megawatts. There is also in the budget for this year the ideas to expedite this and combine this with ultra fast chargers, hydrogen production, making green hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely important. You're all hearing about this. And then frankly, the third element is, and this is, and you mentioned this also, in what we're seeing is the tremendous need for advanced computing. And this is not what DOE normally does with exascale computing. This will be a kind of like, call it cloud, edge computing, like we do grid on the edge. It's also computing on the edge. So we need to scale up this computing to do more model simulations, emulations. We need to do this and dedicate our right now, the computer we just got actually 2 years ago is already, it's super busy. I mean, we go and spend actually a lot of money in the cloud, everything from Microsoft to Amazon, because we just need more computing, and more companies come us and ask us to help them on the kind of modeling activities, but all this is relating back to computing. So this will be our three biggest activities. And honestly, we hope that a lot of this could be expedited through infrastructure stimulus activities, because we need to be faster in getting this to the market. And that's why we prioritize some of these activities.
Great. So I do want to say one thing. I know we have Art Maples is on this call, and Art is the NASA representative here in Colorado. He's a very good guy. He's a kind of a skeptical guy. He doesn't think we're going to get to Mars by 2033, or he makes sure that I continue to advertise this. But that's what this bumper sticker is, and I have some for anybody who wants them. But this is when the orbits of Earth and Mars are very close. Colorado has a big presence on Mars already, especially with the Perseverance and the Ingenuity. Hopefully we'll see a helicopter on Mars take off this weekend. We'll see. But anyway, Art Maples, 2033, we can do this, and Colorado is going to play a role. I'll go quiet, and Dan Powers, I'll turn it so you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Congressman. And thank you, everybody, for making time today for your comments. I think you may have picked up from each other, each panelist, some tidbits of research information, and we look to help share what's going on and break down the stereotypical silos that people describe, perhaps at the federal government level, where different agencies may not know what each other is doing. We found that having these conference calls with Congress people helps to give a little bit of a heads up on things that are going on. I would like to mention with gratitude what Representative Perlmutter and Representative Jonah Goose had presented back, I believe in February now, or maybe it's just beginning of March, but the Federal Lab Modernization Act would be a mechanism to assess the needs for capital investment into our federal labs across the country. This isn't just a Colorado focus, but ideally that would be something that stays in the conversation with the broader infrastructure conversation happening for our country. And I think what you were just describing, Dr. Keller, could be a perspective that every lab might mention, is we need to be able to model and scale and otherwise manifest our science as fast as possible, and doing it in 50-year-old buildings or otherwise buildings that are not as competitive and efficient as some of our other global competitors. That's just a self-inflicted liability that I hope that Representative Perlmutter, you've already set the conversation, and I hope you have many colleagues who also agree that we need to update those federal labs across the country.
Well, I can assure you that is a key piece of this infrastructure package. And to the degree that Colorado, because there's been obviously Colorado supports the labs as best it can in a number of different ways. It has the ability through the American Rescue Plan that we passed, a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago, which is a massive piece of legislation dedicated to COVID development and production. I mean, not COVID development, vaccine development, production, and distribution. But clearly there is the ability for state and local governments to assist both educationally, but potentially with grants through like the School of Mines or whatever to help here. And then I can tell you that one of my priorities is something that Will talked about, which is speaking of a building that was built as part of our World War II effort, which is Building 20 that houses the USGS scientists. And for years, the roof has been ready to fall in over there. And that's the reason the School of Mines and the USGS have developed this joint venture that will allow those scientists to have a state-of-the-art laboratory where the professors and the students can learn alongside the scientists as they do their work on behalf of our nation. So we need to do that same thing. There's been improvements at NIST over time, but more certainly needs to be done. NREL is growing. It's going to keep growing. And we've got to just make sure that our scientists and our engineers and our laboratories are as good as we can make them, because the rest of the world would love to get all of the research that we're doing here in Colorado. They'd like to take it to Beijing or India, wherever it may be, Australia. They'd love to partner with us, but they'd also like to take all of our research. So we've got to stay on our toes.
All right. Well, thank you, Congressman. I really appreciate your leadership. I obviously awareness and passion around this. The 2033 bumper stickers, reach his office, please, if you'd like to get one of those, and everyone will know. And Art is on the call. I'm sure he was smiling as you referenced that goal that we have nationally. But thank you. I think it's really important for these conversations to happen and for us to nurture the network of research labs in Colorado. They are an asset to our economy, to the intellectual capacity that we have here to attract additional technology companies of all kinds, and also to have the ripple effect, sharing the connections with the labs out into the full, I'll even say pre-K to 12 STEM education efforts that are happening. Marla, I see you nodding. There's a check out the NIST or CoLab's news feed. You'll see Marla connecting in with a bunch of students. But in any case, our lab network here, though, as you can appreciate, Congressman Perlmutter, is an asset to the country. And I enjoy speaking to people who aren't in Colorado when they ask, well, why should I care that Colorado has such a robust ecosystem? Or in some ways, even more skeptically, why do you have one that maybe is more robust than ours? To tell the story of how this science manifests out. What each of our speakers today are describing, that provides science and solutions and information for people to use across the country, if not the world. So let's keep them funded and keep them here, but know that their ripple effect is powerful and ideally society shaping over the next few years. We have some urgent goals to pursue, and thank you all for being part of that and chipping in. I think I'll leave it at that then. Any last word from your staff, Tia or Garrett? Anything else you want to say?
Just thank you for organizing this event. It's always great to hear, the work that our national labs are doing.
Okay, well, thank you, Drs. Laird and Keller and Dowell and Will. And please pardon me when I address a couple of people by their first name who just know them better.
Yeah.
So it's informal on Zoom.
Yeah.
Dan, can I say one more thing? And I think for Martin and Daniel, this potential land swap and create that clean energy center that you all are proposing, I think would be fantastic because of the talent that we have here. And then again, if we couple that again, building upon our industry partners, it would be fantastic for the future of our state and nation.
Yeah, I agree. So if you're okay, I would like to keep you also in the office updated. So I think there's a big event, I think, with the local community, I think today or tomorrow. But look, the land swap itself, because I think it's a win-win-win situation. by giving all the, our flats, to open space, and they can build a trail system. And then DOE will get the land in front of our garage, which, beside the soccer fields. And then this will go to the state to then have a developer building what we call this industrial collaboration facility. And we are super excited about this. And if UK would like to keep me updated there, because I think it's a tremendous opportunity, not only for NREL, but also for Colorado and all the organizations in Colorado.
All right. Thank you. And I'll end with also something that made me smile at the very beginning, Dr. Keller, that you mentioned, to the folks who work at NREL, the NRELians. That is a great word.
Yeah, that's NREL. Look, we are like a big family. That's why we call ourselves all NRELians. It's
nice.
It's very ingrained in the what we're trying to do for the community. And look at this again, what I started, that for us to do all this as volunteers to help the people to get the shots is something I'm super excited to be part of this family, because look, this is what also Colorado is. That's what we are as a state.
All right. Well, thank you all again. We'll try to end this on time, and we'll see you all online for sure, and hopefully in person as the year develops. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll stop the recording.